I'm so happy that I'm considered an addict or an alcoholic, depending on, I mean, they're the same, because it allowed me to become the person I am today. And I woke up from that self-centered, self-obsessed point of view, and I realized the most important thing is my connection to all of existence and my ability to connect with the people around me.
Yo, I'm Bryce the Third.
And I'm Liz McKean.
And you are now tuned in to the Rise, Recover, Live podcast. Here we dive into all the recovery stories from around the world.
And we talk about all pathways because there's no one right way to recover.
If you've been with us for a while, you know how powerful stories are. So get ready for your community to get just a little bigger today.
We are so glad that you're here. Let's get into the show. Well, welcome back to the Rise, Recover, Live podcast. Today, you have just Liz McKean here. Bryce the Third is out changing the world in other places. So myself and our wonderful guests are going to be with you. And I think we're just going to jump right into it because I don't have Bryce to ask me about energy. And thank goodness I didn't have an answer. So today, I'm so fortunate to be here with Travis Mickel, who is the founder of Fronting Life, which is an organization that you will find on the Phoenix app. And yeah, I just can't wait to hear about Travis's story, about the work that he does. We already had like a little chat before hitting record that we're just going to have to reproduce because it was awesome already, even if it's in its brevity. So Travis, welcome. Thanks for being here. And how the heck
Thanks
are
so
you?
much for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Where are you coming from? I don't think I even know where in the country you are.
We're in North Carolina. So I'm in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is like a coastal
Nice.
town, which is beautiful because we have the beach and you can connect with nature and kind of, I found myself at the beach.
I love that. It's like I don't even know, like the cover of a novel is what I'm picturing with you there at the beach. I can feel it too. I'm coming from like this busy running around morning with my whole chaos energy. And like already I'm like, wow, I've already gone down several levels just from being in this virtual space with you.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. How long have you been there
I've been
beach
here
area?
for about 4.5 years. I lived in Manhattan for 10 years before I moved down here.
Oh, what a difference. Holy
Yeah,
smokes.
my life in the city was very different. I worked in luxury fashion with like VIP and celebrity and styling and clothes and things like that. So
All right.
yeah.
Well, I was going to warm us up more, but I'm just going to need to hear your story because I'm already so intrigued. So I know that recovery is something that you identify as. So
Yeah.
I know that we'll get there, but like, yeah, just how did you get to this moment? Like, how do we get here today from there? Holy smokes.
Yeah. I grew up in a really little small town and I never felt like I fit in, just like everybody has a lot of people on their recovery journey. But I mean, humans in general, I feel like sometimes we're put into places where we don't just quite fit.
Yeah.
And I decided at a young age, I was like, I'm going to move to the city. I'm going to move to the city. That's going to be my thing. And I went through college and I did all those, the things. And I did. I moved into the city. I started working in luxury fashion. I worked for a company called Prada for a really long time.
Have you heard of it?
And during that time, I learned a lot about the industry, about life, about being transactional, about getting what you want, about the more aesthetics of life and like how to make it look good on the outside and to constantly be needing more and engaging with people that want and want and want. And that's what a consumer capitalist society wants you to do, is to consume. And my life was really good, but throughout all of that, I was heavily into drinking. I was heavily into drugs. And it created an altered reality. I defined myself by the place I lived and the job that I had and the people I surrounded myself with. I didn't realize that you could define yourself by how you show up to the world and the morals and values that you bring into your life. And because I didn't have that as a basis, by the end of it, I was fired from my job and I lost everything that I had. I went into some probably, let's just say, illegal ways of living for a little bit. And by the end of it, I didn't have myself, I didn't have my soul, I didn't have the
Mhm.
ability to kind of perceive the world from reality. And I
Mhm.
was in psychoses and auditory and visual hallucinations. And it's funny, I always tell the story. I was literally at a sex party and like I came kind of to, I call it a spiritual awakening in a pile of people. And I was like, what am I doing? And like, I
Wow.
had no phone, no wallet, no nothing. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And the only telephone number and address I could remember was my aunt's, who was like 2.5 hours away. So I literally just like left this party with no money, no nothing, hopped on a train, got on New Jersey Transit, rode it all, the subway, everything all the way, walked 4 miles in the rain and went and told her, this is what's been going on. My life is in shambles. I don't have anywhere to go. And she was like, baby, we got to get you help.
Oh.
Um, so I've had the experience of living so many lives in this
Mhm.
life, but now being kind of far along in my recovery journey, looking back on all these moments where the universe or God or whatever you want to
Mhm.
call it kind of allowed me to awaken a little bit and to
Yeah.
become aware of the things that were no longer serving me were so beautiful.
Mm.
And I say this all the time is like, I'm so happy that I'm considered an addict or an alcoholic, depending on, I mean, they're the same because it allowed me to become the person I am today. And
Mhm.
I woke up from that self centered, self obsessed point of view. And I realized the most important thing is my connection to all of existence and my ability to connect with the people around me and my ability to bring more love, compassion, and kindness into the world. And like that taught me that my purpose is people. One of
Oh,
my purposes in this life is people and helping them in whatever way I can. So
that is, first of all, very cinematic from start to finish. From Prada to taking a train and being in the rain, pile of people. I mean, you paint a picture. It's so wild because one of the things that you said is like, I didn't know you could define yourself by, what's within you and your values. And honestly, the first thing that came to my mind is like, I didn't know you could define yourself. Like, I thought that had to come from somebody else. I thought we had to, just like you, it was like, let me just show this sheen of perfection on the outside, or what I think, it's supposed to be. And then if somebody tells me that I'm doing it right, then I'm doing it right. And whatever it takes to quiet down the inside parts, like, whether that is a, inner objection or a value that doesn't match up, or even just pain,
Mhm.
that is all in service to that. Let me just make sure the outside looks a certain way. And because otherwise, how will I define myself if someone else isn't reflecting it back to me?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's like I can feel that viscerally, how that inside outside those not matching is just. And until you were like literally and figuratively stripped away of all the things, like
All the
you weren't
things
able to
couldn't
see
have
the
anything left.
nothing.
It all
Yeah.
had to go, throw it in the
Yeah.
dumpster.
That is why. That's, yeah. And then, I mean, I'm sure that from that moment when you talked to your aunt, like it was just like, okay, cool, all better, like all nothing, no problems from then.
Oh yeah, no, no,
Snap.
no.
Yeah. That's
That's
how it
not how
usually
that
goes.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, treatment itself was a whole like mess. And that's what I always remind everybody is like this isn't the beginning of any recovery journey, even with relapses and things like that. It's like it's never pretty
Hmm.
because one, we don't have the awareness, two, we don't have the impulse control or the emotional intelligence to make good decisions. For
Right.
most of my life, I was doing what I thought was best for me and taking no one else into account.
Hmm.
So when those are my actions and my behaviors and the way I show up to the world, it's going to be a bumpy ride and it's not going
Yeah.
to disappear overnight.
Yeah.
Um, and then from that place of acceptance of like, okay, this isn't going to be easy, I can then figure out how I want to walk through the world. I thought it was like, what can I get from the world? And now I realize, how do I walk through the world? And how do I
Yeah.
get to my goals and my dreams? Do I do it at the expense of others, or do I do it from a perspective of inclusivity and unity and connection with people around me?
I love that. And it's so interesting because I feel like, first of all, like we were talking earlier about this, but when you when you are in that, like, nothing's ever enough and take, and like everything has just got to be for me, like we're trained to do that. First of all, every message that we're getting, I think so often I'm picturing like Times Square too, where it's just like, buy this, do this, look this way, be this way. And yet it's a path to a lot of misery, like not that, consumption in every way is bad. I mean, obviously I like sparkly things. If you're watching us on YouTube, I've got lots of sparkles in my world here. But it's when you flip that, and like you do, I like that you've used the word a couple of times, like awakening, because I think that's used in a kind of a woo woo way a lot of the time, which not a I'm actually a big fan of the woo, but even just in a
I'm a
very
woo
literal
girl.
way. I knew I was in a woo room. This is great. But it's like that, even just quite literally, to all of a sudden be like, oh, like shake yourself awake, like, oh crap, like that actually didn't work. And when I do, this life having service as a big part of it, it actually does give to you in a way that I don't know. I don't think we knew. We thought there's it's not just that there's enough to give and still have enough for yourself. It's like you can't have enough for yourself unless you're giving, which is, I don't know. I think that's why so many recovery pathways have that kind of like woven in. It
Yeah.
seems like you've got that figured out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you're at the beach and you're able to kind of find yourself and find this like peaceful version that we are so fortunate to see today. Um, so what does that look like? What is life and recovery? And I mean, I guess a lot of times those are kind of the same. What does that look like for you? How do you stay in this
In this
version of you, which
bubble.
is so lovely?
Yeah. When I first got down here was like basically the beginning of COVID.
Yeah.
So I hadn't really, I was like estranged from my parents, and I was also like 31 years old, and I'd been
Mm-hmm.
on my own since I was like 18 at this point.
Mm.
So I had to move in with them because I didn't really have anywhere else to go. I had no money. I couldn't rely on anybody else. Like there was nothing really going on.
Yeah.
So I moved here, and I did like an IOP, and I got really big into, I'm a big reader and researcher.
Mm-hmm.
So I got into meditation and mindfulness, and I love learning new ideas and skills and concepts. So I got into meditation and mindfulness, and I got really big into Buddhism and
Mm-hmm.
understanding that suffering is a part of life. It
Mm.
doesn't mean that we're good or bad. It's just something that happens to all beings. And it's like, how do I respond to that suffering or that difficulty in my life? Do I blindly react? Or do I give myself the space that I need to make the best decision possible? And I didn't realize how much control of my life that I had.
Mm.
So I studied with like Meditation Magazine, and I became a meditation mindfulness teacher. And then I worked, I do transcendental meditation as my personal practice, which is um, like Maharishi University does it. There's Rajas around, and it's a very simple, pointed, silent type of meditation. This is not the practice that I provide to our community here,
Mm.
but it is what helps me reset every single morning. And then also, like from the Buddhist lineage and all of that, I got into like ancient civilizations. I love Egypt, and that idea that we can like touch this ethereal world that exists around us. For such a long time, I pushed away from religion because I was told the person that I am is going to get me, I'm going to go to hell, or I'm going to be judged, or I'm going to get all of this stuff. And through my healing journey and like going down different modalities of understanding, I realized that everything is just a bunch of stories trying to teach us.
Yeah.
The institutions themselves are much different than what the verses or ideas or concepts they're trying to teach us.
Mm-hmm.
So when I took the idea of I can learn and be curious about anything, not that I need to agree with it, but that I can better understand it, I
Mm-hmm.
then brought this curiosity into my life. And I started unfolding and looking at things from a different perspective. And I've done all of the different programs from like Smart Recovery, Dharma Recovery, Refuge Recovery, AA, NA, you name it. I've done all of them from start to finish. And I love each and every one of them differently.
Hmm.
And I truly believe, for me, that recovery cannot be obtained from a single source. There is so much information and there's so much knowledge to be shared from so many different places that today I'm not willing to limit where I'm going to get my growth and development from. I don't believe in any one idea or concept. I believe that all human beings are individuals. We're snowflakes. Each of us is uniquely our own self. And
Hmm.
we have to figure out and do the work necessary to figure out what resonates most deeply for us as a human, not what worked for our cousin or like this person or that person or what our friends and family tell us, but like actually trying out and being open to searching out what we need for ourselves.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of times I was confused because I thought I needed one thing to change
Hmm.
the way I felt. And I did that with drugs and alcohol for such a long time. Why would I limit myself to one thing? I need to expand. And that's what I always tell everybody is I have to bring a childlike curiosity to everything I'm doing. And when I do that, it gives me the ability to gain new tools and access to new people that I may have never met before. And it's that getting comfortable in uncomfortability is
Yeah.
really big.
Yeah. Well, and I think, when you come from that mindset of like, there's the right thing and there's the wrong thing. There is black, there is white, there is good,
Hmm.
there is bad, there is the thing that works and the thing that doesn't work. And like to go from that to actually, there's a lot of things to explore, and it might not even, the thing that feels right today might not tomorrow, and it's okay to like change and like have seasons of things. I think just even that concept can be really uncomfortable, especially I feel like I have such a different, I'm curious about how you feel about this too. I have such a different feeling about that now than I did, when I was in that, in my own points many a time of desperation of like, oh my God, just fix this, just make this pain go away, make, and if you're telling me I can't do it with this alcohol anymore, then like give me something else that's gonna fix it. And then when inevitably the one thing that I was presented to me was just like, okay, well, I'm not all better. I'm still uncomfortable. It'd be like, well, I'll just go back
Hmm.
to the one thing that I know works. And so to have like, that is just such a, there's something incredibly, what's the word that I'm looking for? Just, I guess I just feel incredibly fortunate to even be able to absorb that. And I think for someone who's maybe at that point of desperation,
Yeah.
if it feels like, what the hell are you talking about? Just give me the one thing, like that is, I think that's super normal. And it's like, it evolves over time and over recovery, which it sounds like that's what it did for you.
Yeah. And I also think a lot of times I thought the problem was the drugs and the alcohol, and I didn't realize that that was actually my solution.
Yeah.
So that was my solution to my feelings. I didn't
Yeah.
like the way people made me feel, society made me feel. I internally felt about myself. So I found this thing that was a solution for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I never realized that my only problem was and always has been me. And it's the way that I interpret the world around me. It's the way that I show up. And I've realized I can't control anything outside of myself. I truly can't. I can manipulate it. I can change it for a certain amount of time. I
Mm-hmm.
can have a false sense of control. But the reality is everything is going to do what it wants.
Mm-hmm.
What I needed to learn to focus on was me and
Yeah.
my actions and my behaviors and what I bring into the world, the people I choose to surround myself with, the
Mm-hmm.
conversations that I'm choosing to have. And once I did that, I stopped needing to be a victim and I started to take responsibility for my actions.
Mm.
And it's in many different areas of my life. You know what I mean? Being molested as a kid or coming out at a very young age made me interact with the world in a very harsh, angry way.
Yeah.
The way I was treated and the things that happened to me were at no fault of my own. But where I can take responsibility is, am I going to allow those things to affect the way I show up for myself and for the people around me?
Yeah.
and I'm not fucking going to do it anymore. I am not
Yeah.
giving my power away to anyone. I am taking it back because like I deserve my happiness. I deserve my compassion, and I deserve to know that I'm enough. And that's what I go back to, is like, it's about how I walk through this world, and what I think I bring into the world.
I love that. And it makes me think of are you familiar with Laura McGowan? She's a writer. She did a
I
podcast.
might.
She wrote We Are the Luckiest. I think she just did another book too. I don't know. She and Holly Whitaker were like my origin story of sobriety. Like their podcast, like I don't even know, more than a
Change your
decade
life.
ago. Yeah, like before I was able to change my life, it was like I might want to change my life. That moment of like even considering. But anyways, she has a whole. I mean, she's written a lot of beautiful things, but one thing that I'm thinking of now is that this is your thing, and like it sucks that it's your thing, but it's your thing. And like essentially the message is like it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. And I think
Hmm.
that was a real big like whoa moment for me, because when I
Yeah, like,
hear
wait, what?
something right, and like when I hear like I'm the problem, or like it's my responsibility, or I can't control this, but I can, like that, I immediately like equate that to like, so it's my fault, so I'm a bad person. So, and that just always led me right back to the bottle. So being able to be like, no, it's actually kind of a gift to be like, no, it's the thing that I can change is the thing that I can change, like
Hmm.
like there's substances out there that are addictive, they're available, and there's pain that's just happening, like you said, like the things that happened to you, like that was not your fault, that was not fair, that was terrible. And then the fact that you found something to make it feel better was
Hmm.
honestly like a way you showed up for yourself, your little self
Yeah.
that just like was in so
Was
much
like, I'm just
pain.
doing the best I
You were just
can.
doing the best you can. You found a solution. And then also, it's not
Yeah.
your fault that that solution was unfortunately something that will ruin your life. But every little moment of click, of light, of awake,
Hmm.
it's like that's your opportunity to step through that door, and then the next door, and then the next door, of like, okay, what can I control? What do I have the power to do? How can I change this reaction? And when you step back through an old door, but that's like you said, relapse and everything, that also, it's not your fault, you're not bad, there's no bad,
Yeah.
there's just the next step, and
Yeah.
I think that's it's a game changer. It was for me anyways, those just like
Yeah.
reframing and like being like, oh, so I don't have to hate myself in order to fix
Yeah.
this thing, and actually there's nothing to fix. Like
Yeah.
what?
I think it's also too like, so when I Wilmington is very different than the city in levels of like, um
I would think all of them, all of the levels.
all of the different levels of living in a city to moving to a coastal, a small coastal city town. Um and I mean, I love the recovery community around here, but when
Yeah.
I went into specific type of fellowships and stuff, I felt like it was very much fear driven. On like, I do not like the phrase change or die,
Mm-hmm.
which I think there is truth behind it, but I also think there are different ways that that can be said.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this need to kind of control people, and this underlying dogma that, like, yes, we say they're spiritual, not religious programs, but when everybody in a room is talking about a specific type of religion, when they're referencing their God, it's very difficult
Yeah.
for a lot of people. So I wanted to create this space for people to explore that.
Yeah.
And I personally think that meditation should be in the step one, because it has such an intense change for people when you create a daily practice for yourself. I wanted to create spaces that we could have spiritual conversations that weren't attached to any specific dogma or background. So I love the recovery communities. I love all the fellowships that exist, but I wanted a place for people to discover silence and the
Mm-hmm.
wisdom that exists when we find that special place within ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, so that is fronting life is how that came about. And everybody's always like, where did you get that name from? And I was like, you know how like drug dealers or whatnot would front you money or front you drugs? So we're gonna front you life.
I love that I didn't know that until this very moment, because that was like, as soon as you said fronting life, like you just enunciated the word. I was saying fronting life, and like, but it's
Yeah.
fronting life. Oh, I see what you did there. That is clever. I like that a
So it's like,
lot.
I'm gonna give it to you.
Hey, buddy, can you front me
And
some life? I love
and
it.
it's so funny because we're about 3 years old now. And
Yeah.
when I first started it, it was like four of us meditating together. And I was like telling people about it. And like I had been like trained in like some sound healing and meditation. And I had a person that came in and did talks and whatnot. And then all of a sudden it just like got this energy and we had to move to a bigger space. And then it was like 20 or 30 people meditating together. And then we had to go to a bigger space. And now we've like launched so many new things. Like we have 3 meditation workshops per week. We're up to on our Mondays is usually our biggest, up to 80 people meditating together
Oh.
every Monday. We got a grant and we launched Conscious Connection, which is a Wednesday where it's a 30-minute meditation and 30-minute discussion. So it's a little bit more involved, not as the one on Monday is simply meditation. And
Mhm.
then we also do like a Dharma meditation on Sundays. And then we launched the creative writing workshop, the healing arts. We do monthly or bi-monthly like social events, everything from like I throw sober EDM raves to we
So
have one on,
cool.
we have one on February 22nd where like I rent out this whole restaurant called Panacea and I bring in a DJ and we get my friend Sweezy who does sound brings in his sound system and like we do like glow paint and fog machines and laser lights and Panacea has a full mocktail non-alcoholic kombucha menu. So like it's like you're out, but it's you don't have to have the mess. You get to enjoy the moment. So it's like we get to engage with like these ideas and concepts and we do retreats and scavenger hunts and all these different that we did beach bashes last year where once a month we would have a beach party and we would just like
Amazing.
all go onto the beach and there'd be like 30 or 40 of us just literally hanging out playing games listening to music and like having good time because I think a
Great.
lot of people sometimes are so scared that they're like life isn't going to be fun. Life is fucking fun if you're fun. Like you have to realize like I'm the only person who gets in my way of having
Mm-hmm.
a good time. And like I can create happiness wherever I go. I just have to be looking from a lens of happiness. And I wanted to create this community that's we focus on meditation, mindfulness, creativity, and connection to promote personal growth and self-awareness. And it's grown so much that now we don't limit ourselves to just people in recovery. We're
Mm-hmm.
combining recovery and non-recovery because the last thing that will ever leave us will be the stigma of being an addict or an alcoholic. And the best way for our community to show themselves and their true selves is to connect us with other
Mm-hmm.
people. Because when you walk into one of our meditations, you're not necessarily going to know who's there that
Mm-hmm.
is in recovery and who's not. So it gives people the ability to find that place to communicate, to talk, to connect.
Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't have to be about like, what step are you on or like, what are you doing? It's like, who are you as a person? How can I
Mm-hmm.
support you on your journey? Where are you in your life? And it creates a bigger conversation that's not as pointed or focused. It's more expansive in the way we show up for it.
I love that. Well, and it feels like, we were talking earlier about having your kind of insides and your outsides not match how painful that is. And,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's ever, I've actually thought about this a lot lately, been doing a lot of work with like, just identity and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
when, and, how I present myself on the outside is going to be a little different for each scenario and each person and like that I'm with. And that doesn't mean it's not really me. It just means, this just doesn't always, you're just not going to turn yourself inside out in every single interaction because that's no fun for
Yeah.
anybody. That's all the
No.
mess. But I think there's a lot to be said for having a program or program's the wrong word, but just like a community, an experience, tools for your life where you're working on both of those things. So it's like you're creating. So I teach yoga, and this is a thing that is like my only goal. Like I cannot think of a thing I could care less about than whether you can stand on your head or do a fancy pose. But if by the end of the time that you're on your mat, you feel safe inside of you, like that. I
Mhm.
never felt safe inside of me. There's still a lot of times throughout the day that I feel like, oh God, the call is coming from inside of the house. So to work on creating a feeling of safety within your mind and body, but then, combine that with like having something that on the outside is safe, that you can have fun, and then adding in not only people who have had your exact same experience, but also people who haven't, but are also dedicated to like maintaining this just, and
More
safety is
holistic
like it's
healing
overused, but
lifestyle.
yeah, it's just like, oh my gosh, there's a party on the inside and a party on the outside. It's like the mullet of living. So it's just no, the opposite of a mullet, because that's business on one side. You know what I mean?
I know what you
Anyways,
mean.
it just feels like there's, because I could play the part of good girl on the outside all the while falling apart on the inside, and then for a while it was
Mhm.
almost the opposite. And you've created a place where people can just be and be safe to be, and that's pretty badass.
Yeah, and you say be, and it's just like I have one of my friends says this a lot, and it's like we're constantly human doing, like we're humans
Yeah.
doing, and like we forget that we're actually human beings.
Yeah.
And like I've realized that the best place for me to find the most strength and the most courage is in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of my life I lived in the past or fearful of the future, and I had
Mm-hmm.
no ability to find myself in the present moment. And that's why I love meditation and mindfulness so much,
Yeah.
because it allows us to access the only moment that truly exists, which is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we can anchor ourselves in our breath, which is the only thing that will never leave us in this lifetime. And we can find the safety and security there whenever we want. It
Yeah.
doesn't cost anything. No one else can take it away from us. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's there for us whenever we choose to turn to it, and it allows us to change the way we feel when we create this practice for ourselves.
I love that you just said it that way, because I'm just thinking of all the times that and I know, we've talked a lot about like different recovery modalities, and I just want to say that I absolutely echo what you said, is that I'm so glad, I'm just so glad they all exist, and there's
Hmm.
I'm not a 12-step person myself. Like I had some experiences that were not great in 12-step, and that does not mean for a single second that I'm not a big fan of the fact that that program is out there, and there are people I love who wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. So woo. That being said, I also think um some of the messaging that I received, that, or the way I interpreted it when I was in some of those rooms, was, you know, wanting to feel different is not okay. And I don't actually agree with that, because, and like, I know that one of the way I wanted to feel different when I picked up a drink was a pretty specific way of wanting to feel different. But like, there are a lot of moments that I'm realizing that my nervous system is like, you know, has left the building. It's like
Yeah.
the roof is blown off, and I don't want to feel that way, and I want to feel different. And that is actually like my brain and body, when I recognize that, giving me the opportunity to take a few deep breaths. And I have that ability. I can do that. I can feel better, and
Hmm.
and truly feel better and have it be different. But like, for me, as such a black and white person, that was really
Yeah.
hard for me to understand, that one was not like the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times too, I'm not going to limit myself anymore.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily disagree or agree with everything in any place,
Same. Yeah.
but I know that I started my recovery journey so that I could go anywhere in the world
Yeah.
and not be limited by what I'm comfortable around, or if I fit into this place. Like my intuition today tells me whether I should be here or not. I
Hmm.
have the ability to walk away if I'm uncomfortable. I have
Yeah.
people that I can call, and experiences that I like. And in the beginning, it was so much fear.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be around people who understood me. But from there, I realized that once I'm strong enough and I actually did the work to understand myself and what I want to bring into this world, I can then go interact with anybody, anywhere, at any
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that you've you did the you be the change you want to see in the world by
Yeah.
creating what you created. Like you're giving that permission slip to other people, and I think that just makes all the individual spaces all the more welcoming and full of those things that everybody needs, like that, to have choice, to have access to what you need to feel safe. Yeah. Well, I know that we are getting a little close to time, so I have a couple.
Yeah.
I have two more things I want to ask you. That we pretty much ask everybody.
Yeah.
So first, I'm going to start with the easy one first. So first, how can folks find you? So if they want to get involved with what you're doing, if they just think that you're pretty cool and they want to connect somehow, like what resources, ways of doing that would you put out there in the world?
You can go to our website, which is frontinglife.com. We also have an Instagram and a Facebook, which is at Fronting Life. All of our information, if you're ever in Wilmington and you want to come do a meditation or a creative writing workshop, we're hoping by the end of the year, mid-year this year to the end of the year, that we can start launching some of the meditations online.
Mm-hmm.
So you can sit in for our Monday mindfulness or conscious connection for the meditation portion of it. And also, if you want to talk to me and you have questions, you can find me on Instagram. I just started one for myself because I didn't want to do it. It's
So
just
funny.
TL Mickel, which is like my last name. And I'm happy to talk to anybody about their recovery journey or questions that they have because we're in this together.
We are. And you know where else we are together? In
Where?
the coolest app in town, which
Oh
might
my
just
God,
be the
yeah.
Phoenix app. We got
Oh my
you,
God,
and
Phoenix,
you're a
Phoenix,
relatively
Phoenix.
new
I'm a newbie.
organization. I
Yeah.
know, to the app. So yeah, join if you haven't already. Make sure that you're on there, because that list is just continues to grow of our partners, of different resources, and honestly, like everybody, we've got like going on 500,000 people in there, and like everybody's on there who's basically like, yes, I do believe that you should have the choice of what your pathway looks like. I will cheer you on. And that is crazy. Like that is just like a thing that I cannot believe is in this world that we get to walk through, and I'm just so grateful to be part of it. And I'm grateful you are on there as well.
Yeah.
So yay. Last
What's
but not
the
least,
next question?
The next question. I'm doing a hand talking thing. I've been doing this.
No,
more
I
lately.
love it. I love it.
Good. Thank goodness. I can't stop, so it's a good thing. So Travis, if you, Travis, could go back in time, pull back the curtain, and say words, any words, doesn't have to be advice or whatever, but just like, what might you say to an earlier version of yourself?
It might not be easy, but you're going to get through it. Don't rely on the validation from others. Everything you need is within yourself. Start searching inward, and you'll find the happiness and the love you've always looked for. It doesn't come in a bottle or a pill or a person. It comes from within you.
I got a little goosebumps chill. So that's just perfect. And I have not a doubt in the world that there's somebody listening to this podcast who really needed to hear that today. So thank you for being this version and all the versions of you. Well, I think we did it.
We did it. We made it through.
We did. We sure did. Yeah. Fist bumps and all the things. I don't know how to be cool. Oh, and Bryce isn't here to laugh at me for being the nerdiest of nerds. So, sorry, Bryce. Well, Travis, I'm so grateful that you're here. This is such a fun convo, and I feel so lucky to have gotten to spend this time with you, and
I know.
look forward to future times that we get to connect. So come back anytime.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, and thank you for having me on. It was wonderful.
Such a pleasure. And for everyone listening, I mean, this is way more fun knowing that you're out there listening. So make sure that you're in the app if you're not already. We're here every Tuesday, and we hope you keep listening. And in the meantime, be good to yourself, and we'll see you next time.